The throne room was silent as the boy king rose from the iron throne. His golden hair shimmered beneath the torchlight, but there was something else, something no one expected. Not a sneer, not a smirk, but a strange softness in his blue eyes. Queen. Cersei noticed it first. "Joffrey, speak," she urged, expecting another round of bitter punishment for some petty insult or imagined offense. But instead, Joffrey looked across the room at Sansa Stark, her eyes red from the endless grief of her father's execution. "I owe the Lady Sansa an apology," Joffrey said, voice steady but quiet. Murmurs rippled through the court. Cersei's face twitched. Tyrion's brow arched. Even the Kingsguard shifted in confusion. Sansa froze, lips slightly parted, unsure if this was another cruel joke. "I was wrong to hurt you," he continued. "Wrong to have your father executed. That was not justice, it was vengeance, and it was mine, not the realm's, to take." The words stunned everyone. Sir Meryn Trant blinked like a man slapped. Littlefinger lowered his goblet, the wine forgotten. Varys, ever unreadable, clasped his hands together in stillness. Sansa could only whisper, "Thank you, Your Grace." Joffrey took a breath, gripping the armrest of the throne like it steadied him. "From this day forward, I will not rule through fear. I will listen to my counsel. I will learn the laws of the land. I will make amends." And just like that, the game began to change. Tyrion, though skeptical, leaned into this unexpected opportunity. "A wise man learns faster than a foolish king, nephew," he said. "May you prove to be the former." Behind closed doors, Cersei was livid. "You humiliate yourself before the court, before the North. You show weakness." "No," Joffrey replied, looking her in the eye for once. "I show strength of a different kind. The realm doesn't need a monster. It needs a king." Jaime, watching from the shadows, smiled faintly. It was the first time he saw something, someone, growing behind the crown. Joffrey's new behavior didn't go unnoticed in King's Landing. He called for food stores to be opened to the starving poor. He ordered the City Watch to stop harassing street vendors. He even halted public beatings for petty crimes. People whispered, "The boy king's gone soft," while others said, "Perhaps there's hope yet." But change has enemies. Cersei began spinning her web, whispering to lords who liked the old. Joffrey better, the one who tortured animals and played executioner like a child with toys. They called it discipline, strength. Fear worked after all, it kept people quiet. It kept the throne warm. But Joffrey wasn't listening to them anymore, not entirely. He summoned Tyrion's hand again, gave Sansa her chambers back, and even apologized to Sir Barristan Selmy for his forced retirement. Of course, the realm was no fairy tale. Renly still called banners in the south. Stannis watched Dragonstone, flaming gods behind him. Robb Stark was crowned king in the north. The war had already begun, but something had shifted. For the first time, the Red Keep wasn't ruled by terror. It was ruled by a boy trying to be a man, and a man trying to be good. Yet kindness can be dangerous in the wrong city, because as one king tried to become human, others saw it as the perfect time to strike. Winterfell was colder now, not just from the snow that began to fall early that year, but from the silence that filled the halls after Robb Stark left for war. Catelyn wandered those stone corridors like a ghost, clinging to the memory of her daughters, both hostages of the very boy who had executed her husband. But then came a raven. It bore the seal of the Iron Throne. She opened it slowly, almost afraid. Her eyes scanned the words once, then again. King Joffrey expresses deepest regret for the execution of Lord Eddard Stark. Wishes no enmity with House Stark. Extends offer of safe return for Lady Arya and Lady Sansa Stark. Peace may yet be found. She stared at the parchment like it had grown fangs. "Peace? Joffrey?" she whispered. "What game is this?" Robb, camped near the twins, read the same message and felt fury stir in his chest. He regrets it now that half the realm's at war? No. This is weakness disguised as mercy. But Catelyn, who had seen more of the game than her son, pressed her, hand on his. Or maybe it's mercy, disguised as weakness. Still, Robb could not forgive so easily. and neither could the north. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, the streets buzzed with confusion. Joffrey had ordered the city's septs to shelter orphans. Gold cloaks were no longer dragging small folk into dark alleys for sport. Even Sansa walked the Red Keep's halls without a guard shadowing her every step. She still did not trust him. "You think being nice for a week undoes what you've done?" she said one morning as they stood in the gardens. "You laughed while they killed my father." Joffrey looked away. "I know. I wake up hearing the sword fall. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I want to try." Sansa didn't reply, but she didn't walk away either. In the small council chamber, things were tenser. Varys warned, "Your Grace kindness will not stop the war. The wolves are marching." "I know," Joffrey said. "That's why I must act before they reach the gates." Tyrion leaned forward. "You want peace? Fine. But you'll need more than apologies. Marriages, hostages, gold, something real." "I'll give them all 3, Joffrey said. "I'll marry Sansa, release Arya, send 5,000 barrels of grain to the north and gold to their bannermen." Littlefinger sneered behind his teeth. "It'll make you look desperate." "No," Tyrion said slowly. "It'll make him look like a king who thinks beyond blood." Yet not everyone wanted peace. In the shadows of the throne room, Cersei met with Grand Maester Pycelle and whispered of poisons and accidents. "If my son continues this path, he'll lose the throne. Better a martyr than a laughingstock." Pycelle nodded, oily and old. "Of course, Your Grace." And in a far darker corner of the city, a cloaked figure, one who wore the sigil of the Faith of the Seven, was stirring up whispers that Joffrey had been softened by sorcery, that his sudden mercy was a sign of corruption, a curse. The people might accept kindness. The power-hungry never would. Then came the second raven from the north. It read, "The king in the north rejects your peace." The north remembers. Joffrey read it in silence, then set it down with a trembling hand. Tyrion watched him carefully. "You knew this could happen," Tyrion said. "Yes," Joffrey whispered, "but I had to try." The war was still coming, but now it was coming for a different kind of king. Not a tyrant in a crown of thorns, but a boy struggling to build something noble in a world that despised nobility. And far across the narrow sea, in a city of bones and heat, a girl with silver hair heard rumors of a Westerosi king who spared his enemies. She smiled bitterly. "Let's see how long that lasts," Daenerys Targaryen whispered to her dragons. The bells of King's Landing tolled long into the night, not for a death nor a wedding, but for the arrival of a raven bearing grim news. The war was no longer in the north, it was coming south. Robb Stark, the young wolf, had taken Harrenhal. The blackened ruin that once housed monsters now flew the banner of the direwolf. Worse yet, he'd struck a deal with House Frey, marriage for passage, and now his forces were pushing toward the Riverlands, closer to the capital than Joffrey had hoped. Still, the boy king did not turn to cruelty. "Open the granaries," he told his small council. "Double the rations for every soldier. I want no man marching under our banner to be hungry." Lord Tywin, having returned early from the Westerlands to inspect his grandson's sudden charity, slammed a goblet against the table. "You think food will save the throne? Or kindness? You were born from lions, Joffrey. Act like one." Joffrey stood from his chair, eyes steady. "And where has that gotten us? Dead kings, burned cities, and a realm that bleeds. I'll be a lion, but not a rabid one." Tywin sneered. "You sound like a woman." Tyrion interrupted. "Funny. I thought he sounded like a man trying to survive a storm with something other than fire." Cersei watched in icy silence, her power slipping through her fingers like sand. Her son was no longer hers, and worse, he was starting to belong to the people. In the streets, whispers of the gentle king grew louder. Some called it weakness, but many, especially the poor, called it justice. Bread was cheaper, soldiers stopped beating men for fun, and when a group of orphan girls was attacked in Flea Bottom, Joffrey had the men hanged publicly. "He's changing," Sansa said one evening, standing with Tyrion on a balcony. "I don't know how or why." Tyrion sipped his wine. "Guilt has a strange way of rotting boys into men, but peace has many enemies. In a brothel deep within the city, Petyr Baelish whispered to a sellsword, "Joffrey lives in a dream. Break it. I want riots in the streets. I want fire licking the edges of the Red Keep. If the people love him now, let them taste hunger again." And soon the city turned. Coin vanished. Grain shipments were intercepted before reaching the gates. Suddenly bread was scarce again. Rumors spread. The king lied. He feasts while we starve. Joffrey watched the panic return like a flood. "Why is this happening? We gave everything." Tyrion was already moving. "Because mercy in Westeros is like honey to flies. Sweet, easy to ruin. Even Sansa, once the quiet, broken girl, had begun to shift. You can't rule just with kindness," she told Joffrey in the Godswood. "You need strength, not cruelty, strength." That night the bells tolled again, this time for the dead. A fire had broken out in the Dragon Pit district. Dozens burned. Some said it was accident. Tyrion found proof it was no such thing. A stash of wildfire had been planted, touched off by torches thrown during a sudden riot. As smoke choked the sky, Joffrey stood above the city from the Tower of the Hand, watching it burn. And for the first time he understood. Peace could not be gifted. It had to be fought for, defended, protected from men like Baelish, like Tywin, like the lords who smiled in court and sharpened knives in their hearts. The boy king turned to Tyrion and said quietly, "If kindness fails, we do not return to cruelty. We become something else, a king with teeth." Tyrion raised a brow. "And who will teach you to bite?" "I'll learn from wolves," Joffrey said, "and strike first." Across the realm, ravens flew, to the Vale, to Dorne, to Dragonstone, and one alone to the twins, with a seal of gold and crimson and a message for Robb Stark. "Meet me not as a boy nor an enemy, but as a king who knows your pain." The wind howled across the riverlands, dragging with it the chill of winter and the heavier weight of war. Yet beneath the grey skies and muddied ground, two camps prepared for something Westeros had not seen in generations. A meeting between two kings. Robb Stark, cloaked in direwolf fur and flanked by bannermen like Lord Grachon and Sir Brynden Tully, rode toward the God's Eye under the protection of a peace banner. There was skepticism in every stride, every sidelong glance from his men. "This could be a trap," Sir Brynden said bluntly. "A Lannister doesn't invite the son of a murdered man without reason." "He's not a Lannister," Robb replied quietly. "Not anymore, if the letters are true." They arrived at the Weirwood Grove by dusk, and there, under the pale white branches, stood Joffrey Baratheon, not dressed in silk or crimson, but in plain black leather and a fur cloak heavy with the sigil of the crowned stag. Beside him were Tyrion, a few loyal guards, and, surprisingly, Sansa. Robb's horse pawed at the earth, sensing tension. His eyes locked on Joffrey's. "You're bold to come unarmored." Joffrey didn't flinch. "I'm here to end a war, not start another." Silence stretched between them. Then Robb dismounted. "You murdered my father," Robb said flatly. "No courtesy, no titles." Joffrey looked at the ground. "Yes, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But the Lannisters murdered him. I was a pawn then. I'm trying not to be now." The wind rustled through the trees like an answer from the old gods. "You want peace," Robb said. "What are you offering?" Joffrey stepped forward. "Autonomy for the North. Full independence. No taxes. No banners owed. Your lands are yours, but keep the peace. Stay out of the South." The Greatjon laughed bitterly behind Robb. "You expect us to believe this? Is this another Southern trick? You Lannisters never gave without a blade behind your back." "I'm not a Lannister," Joffrey said again, louder now. "I'm trying to be more than what they made me." Robb studied him. There was something different in the boy's posture. Less arrogance, more weight. "And what do you gain from this?" Robb asked. "Survival," Joffrey said simply. "The realm is bleeding. Dawn watches with spears ready. The reach is uncertain. The Iron Islands are stirring. If we keep fighting, there'll be no throne left to sit on." Tyrion cleared his throat. "He's not wrong, my lord. You think the war ends with King's Landing? It doesn't. It ends with fire. Wildfire, dragonfire, it won't matter. Everything burns." Sansa stepped forward. Her voice was soft, but firm. "Robb, he's not who he was. And I'm not asking for trust. Just give him a chance." Robb looked at her for the first time. She looked older, sharper. No longer the girl who dreamed of knights. She looked like a Stark again. He turned to Joffrey. "We will speak of terms, but if this is a lie—" "It's not," Joffrey said, cutting him off. "If I wanted your head, I'd have sent an army, not my heart." That night, the two camps sat uneasily around separate fires, but the mood was different. It wasn't celebration, but it wasn't bloodlust either. It was cautious hope. Yet even as Joffrey and Robb sat beneath the stars, speaking of roads, trade, borders, and peace, a shadow moved through the night. In King's Landing, Cersei Lannister paced like a lioness in a cage. "He's meeting with wolves while I'm locked in this den. My son plots with traitors and calls it peace." Grand Maester Pycelle bowed. "Shall I send word to the City Watch, Your Grace?" "No," Cersei hissed. "Send word to the twins. Tell Lord Walder Frey that the king in the north travels unguarded. Let him do what cowards do best." And across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen stared into the flames, where visions of Westeros danced. "A boy king pretends he can unmake the old world. Let him. I'll bring him a new one, built on ash." The snow began to fall thicker as they broke camp near the Trident, but the mood among the men was lighter than it had been in moons. Joffrey's offer of peace had not ended the war, not yet, but it had slowed the tide of death. And in a realm carved by blood, even a pause felt like a miracle. Robb Stark and his host prepared to ride north, escorted by a handful of the Crown's men as a gesture of goodwill. Sansa stayed behind in King's Landing, at her own request. "I will be your witness," she told Joffrey. "If you fail to keep your word, I'll be the one to tell the world you lied." It was her way of seizing back her power, of ensuring no peace came without a cost, but even as new hope grew, treachery stalked the shadows. At the twins, Walder Frey sat upon his high-backed chair, brittle hands curled around a goblet of wine. He didn't drink. A sealed message sat in his lap. The seal already broken, the contents read, the meaning clear. The Queen Regent wanted blood. "And what will you give me if I spill it?" Walder croaked into the fire, to no one in particular. "The North never gave me much, just promises. The South, they never keep them either." One of his sons leaned in. "A king without a host is an easy kill." "Yes," Walder muttered, "but a dead king doesn't repay debts. A live one does. Let's see who offers more." Meanwhile, Joffrey stood, atop the battlements of the Red Keep, looking out over a city that still didn't quite trust him. He'd fed the hungry. He'd ordered reparations for families burned by wildfire. He'd even pardoned a group of Night's Watch deserters in the dungeons, sending them back to the wall instead of to the headsman's block. And still, the lords eyed him like a wounded lion, unsure if he was tamed or just playing dead. Tyrion joined him, cloak flapping in the wind. "You're winning hearts," Tyrion said, "but hearts are fickle. The nobility cares more for coin, for security, for power." Joffrey didn't look at him. "Then I'll win those too, one at a time." Tyrion sipped his wine. "If you live long enough." Word came 2 days later. Robb Stark and his men had been attacked near Maidenpool, not by Freys, not by Lannisters, by mercenaries, cutthroats with no sigil, no name, only gold in their eyes. Dozens of Northmen dead. Robb wounded. It was an ambush, and it bore the marks of insider knowledge. The North was furious. Peace cracked like ice under a boot. When the Raven came bearing Robb's bloodied reply, it said only, "Your peace was bait, the wolf remembers." Joffrey crushed the letter in his hand, his knuckles white with rage. "I didn't send them, I swear it." Tyrion looked him over. "It doesn't matter, someone did, and it'll be your name on the dagger." That night, Sansa came to him. "My brother was almost killed," she said. Her voice was soft, but her words were sharp. "If you're truly changed, then prove it. Find out who did this and punish them as a Stark would." So Joffrey called for Varys, and the spider came, gliding in like a breath of cold air. "There are whispers," Varys said, "of a plot within the Queen's chambers. A letter sent to the twins. Gold passed to mercenaries through unnamed channels." Joffrey's eyes darkened. "My mother?" "Perhaps," Varys said. "Or someone loyal to her vision of you." "I will not be her puppet again," Joffrey snapped. "You never were," Varys said gently. "Just a boy on a throne full of knives." The next morning, Cersei awoke to find her room surrounded by guards. She smiled, even as they took her into custody. So, the boy thinks he's a king. Joffrey didn't flinch when they brought her before him. You tried to murder peace. She laughed in his face. Peace is a myth told to children. You'll learn that when they slit your throat in your sleep. He didn't respond. He simply turned to the guards and said, "The Queen Mother is to be confined. No visitors, no letters, no power." As they dragged her away, her laughter echoed down the hall, high and bitter and cruel. The lioness was caged, the wolf was wounded, and the boy king stood on a throne made of swords, trying to hold together a realm slipping through his fingers. But far across the sea, 3 dragons took flight under a blood-red sky, and Daenerys Targaryen smiled as the wind turned westward. "Let the boy build his peace," she said. "I'll bring the fire he forgot." The chill in the air had turned sharp by the time the Raven arrived in King's Landing. It bore no seal, only a single scrap of parchment that stank faintly of smoke. I'm coming. Daenerys Stormborn. The small council read it in silence. The flames in the chamber seemed to shrink as the name settled over the table like a curse. Tyrion sat back in his chair and muttered, "Well, that's one way to declare war." Joffrey's eyes remained on the paper, his jaw tight. "How many dragons?" Varys answered. 3, grown, not hatchlings. "And how many ships?" "Enough to carry an army," the spider said. "And she has the Unsullied, the second sons, and her name, every slave she's ever freed will rally behind her banner. For the first time since his attempt at redemption began, Joffrey's voice trembled just a little. "She doesn't know me, she knows the stories, the monster they made me into." "She doesn't care," Tyrion said bluntly. "She's not coming for you, she's coming for the throne, no matter who sits on it." Joffrey stood. "Then we must prepare the city, open the armories, call in every bannerman. We'll show her we are not the old kings, we are not our fathers. But fear works faster than orders. The lords of the Reach were already sending envoys to Dragonstone. Whispers of surrender rose from the Riverlands. The Vale remained silent, neither friend nor foe yet. And Dawn, always watching, had sent nothing. Joffrey summoned Sansa that evening, asking her to walk with him through the quiet halls of the Red Keep. He wore no crown, no armor, just a thick black cloak to fight off the cold. "She's stronger than I am," he admitted. "She has dragons, she has fire. And I've spent most of my life being a boy no one respected." Sansa looked at him long and steady. "Then stop thinking like a boy, think like a king, a good king." He stopped near the old Targaryen tombs. Dust lingered in the air, thick and slow. "Would you stand with me?" he asked her. "When she comes?" Sansa didn't answer right away. "You once made my life hell," she finally said. "I wanted to push you from a tower, and now, I don't know. I see something in you. A boy who's trying to do the right thing even when the world keeps punishing you for it." She turned to him. "If I stay, it won't be for you. It'll be for the realm." Joffrey nodded. "Then let's save it together." But outside the Red Keep, the winds were shifting. In Flea Bottom, preachers began to speak of the Dragon Queen with hope in their voices. The small folk remembered wildfire and smoke, and they weren't eager to see it again. The fear of another siege, another explosion, had already begun to rot their trust in the crown. And deep in the dungeons, Cersei Lannister was not idle. She whispered to guards. Promised gold, promised revenge. When that didn't work, she promised something more. A return to the old order. "You serve a boy playing at mercy," she hissed through the bars. "But when the dragons come, he will burn. Serve me. And you will survive." One of the younger guards began slipping notes beneath her cell door. Another turned a blind eye when she began receiving visitors cloaked in black. The Queen Mother wasn't just caged, she was breeding poison. Then, on the eve of winter's first true storm, another raven came. This one bore the sigil of a kraken. "King Euron Greyjoy offers alliance, ships, fire, salt. Say the word." Joffrey stared at the parchment like it was a venomous snake. "The madman from the Iron Isles now offers help." Tyrion read the letter and spat on the floor. "He doesn't want to help, he wants to rule beside whoever's left standing when the dragons are done." "And what if we need him?" Joffrey asked. "Then we've already lost," Tyrion muttered. The storm broke that night. Wind howled over the city walls, and somewhere across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen's sails had caught the wind. The Queen of Fire was coming, and King Joffrey, reborn in mercy, had just enough time to wonder, would kindness survive dragonfire? The sky above Blackwater Bay turned grey as if mourning what was to come. The wind smelled of salt and fire, and the bells of the great sept rang not for peace, but warning. Ships had been spotted on the horizon, dozens of them, black sails trimmed in red, flying the three-headed dragon of House Targaryen. Daenerys had arrived. King's Landing braced itself like an old, wounded beast. Every street was crawling with gold cloaks, every gate fortified. Civilians herded into churches and storehouses. For all his mercy, for all his attempts at reform, Joffrey now stared down a truth as ancient as Westeros itself. Peace would not save him. Not now. In the war room, Tyrion leaned over the painted table, his finger tracing the line of ships. If she comes with dragons, no amount of wildfire will matter. They'll fly right over our walls. She's not here to negotiate, said Sansa from across the room. She thinks she's justice. She's fire, Tyrion corrected grimly. And fire doesn't negotiate. It devours. Joffrey stood at the head of the table, silent. He'd aged more in the last year than most kings do in 5. The crown upon his head was lighter now, reforged into a simpler circlet, without spikes, without arrogance. She'll give me one chance to kneel, he said. One chance to surrender the city, and when I don't, she'll burn it. You won't? Tyrion asked, surprised. Joffrey's eyes were firm. Not for myself, but if I kneel, if I abandon the city I swore to protect, the next ruler will rule by dragonfire. No law, no council, no realm, just fire and fear. The small council fell quiet. Then Joffrey added, prepare the people. Evacuate as many as you can. No pride is worth 10,000 lives. And so the gates opened, not to fight but to flee. For the first time a king let his people go before battle. It was the last mercy he could offer, but not everyone was pleased. Inside. The dungeons. Cersei smiled in the dark as a whisper reached her ears. The dragons have landed. That night, her cell was found empty. At dawn, Daenerys Targaryen stood atop a ridge just beyond the city walls. Her white hair whipped in the wind. Drogon loomed behind her, wings stretched wide, smoke curling from his jaws. Rhaegal circled above. Viserion waited in the sky, hissing like a storm brewing in his throat. Grey Worm stood beside her. The gates are shut. She said nothing for a moment, watching the city, then lifted her voice with calm finality. Bring me the boy. Joffrey rode out alone, no guards, no armor, just a king cloaked in black and gold, face pale but calm. Daenerys watched him approach. You're braver than I expected. I didn't come to beg, he said, but to ask. Her eyebrow rose, for restraint. You'll take this city either way, but burn it, and you burn your future too. Be better than the stories. They'll tell. She stared at him like he was a child speaking in riddles. They told me you were a monster, that you beheaded fathers and beat your bride. I was, he admitted, but I changed, and if I can, maybe you can too. Silence. Then Drogon bellowed behind her. I didn't come for peace, she said coldly. I came for justice. And what will justice look like in the ashes? He asked softly. Before she could reply, a thunderclap split the sky. Then another. Not. Lightning. Wildfire. Explosions ripped through the southern wall. Screams echoed across the city. Joffrey turned back in horror. What? And then he knew. Cersei. Far from the battlefield, the Queen Mother watched from the sept of Baelor's high tower as her old plan ignited, the last of the wildfire. Caches buried beneath the city, now lit by her orders. If my son won't protect the crown, she whispered, then I'll bury it with the city. Daenerys saw the flames. She thought it was treachery. A trap. She gave no order. She didn't need to. Drogon roared, and the sky turned to fire. Joffrey raced back toward the gates, shouting orders, trying to evacuate the last of the civilians. Tyrion and Sansa ran through smoke-choked corridors, searching for shelter, for safety, for each other. And above it all, the dragons fell upon the city like the wrath of gods. The Red Keep shook, the towers cracked, The bells rang once more, frantic, panicked, pleading for mercy. But mercy had left this war long ago. The Red Keep burned, stone cracked, statues fell, and blood slicked the once proud marble floors of the throne room. The Iron Throne, twisted and blackened from dragon flame, stood like a jagged skeleton in the middle of the ruin. Heat still shimmered in the air, and ash fell like snow from the broken ceiling above. Joffrey Baratheon staggered through the smoke, one hand pressed to his ribs, where shards of stone had sliced his flesh. His crown was gone, lost in the chaos. His face, once pampered and arrogant, was smeared with soot, streaked with blood. But he was alive. Barely. Bodies littered the halls, soldiers, servants, lords and innocents. Some burned beyond recognition, others crushed beneath rubble. The people he'd sworn to protect, the very city he'd begged Daenerys to spare. And now? Nothing but ruin. Sansa found him beneath the shattered arch near the council chamber. Her, dress torn, hair matted, but eyes sharp with something between rage and sorrow. "You told her not to burn the city," she said coldly. "I tried," he whispered, falling to his knees. "I begged her." "You showed her mercy," she said, "and she answered with fire." Joffrey looked up at her, despair in his eyes. "She thought it was me. The wildfire. My mother lit it. Then your kindness wasn't enough." She said, and they both knew the truth. In Westeros, kindness alone could not save a kingdom. Tyrion limped in behind her, coughing violently, his face half burned, one arm useless at his side. "We're alive," he croaked. "Somehow." "Daenerys?" Joffrey asked, barely able to say her name. Tyrion's eyes narrowed. "She sits the throne now, or what's left of it." And she did. Not in ceremony, not with banners or feasts, but in silence, as she stepped through the ruined hall and placed one hand on the twisted iron. Drogon curled outside the keep, wings folding around the rubble like a sleeping god. She turned as Joffrey entered. He looked nothing like the boy king she had imagined. "No gold, no pride, just ruin in human form. You burned the city," he said. "You killed the people I tried to protect. You tried too late," she replied coldly. "How many lives did you take before you grew a conscience?" I finished. "What you began." "You're wrong," Joffrey said, staggering forward. "I tried to stop it. I caged my mother. I offered peace." "But you wore the crown," she said, "so the fire was yours." She raised her hand. Drogon growled, but Sansa stepped between them. "Enough!" she screamed. "If you kill him, then everything you claim to be, liberator, savior, queen of justice, dies with him." Daenerys looked at her, eyes wild with rage and pain. She had come so far, lost so much. Her vision of a better world shaped in fire and blood, now threatened by a boy who had once been her enemy. "You want justice," Sansa said. "Then show it." Not fire, justice. For a long time no one spoke. Then Daenerys lowered her hand. "He lives," she said, "but not as a king." Joffrey fell to the floor, coughing blood. "Then what am I?" "A reminder," she said, "of what mercy costs. In..." The days that followed, Daenerys declared herself Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, but whispers spread quickly that she had destroyed the capital, that she ruled with fear, that the woman who freed slaves had become a tyrant with wings. Sansa returned to the north and declared independence. No war this time, no rebellion, just a clean break. Daenerys, weakened by public doubt, allowed it, if only to avoid more bloodshed. Tyrion disappeared from the city, his scars too deep for politics. Some say he sailed west, others say he drank himself into legend. As for Joffrey, he was not executed, not exiled. He was left alive, stripped of title and power, given no land, no name. He became a healer of all things. In the ruins of the capital, among the wounded and the orphaned, the boy who had once ruled by fear cleaned wounds, changed bandages, and said little. Some spat at him. Others didn't recognize him. A few still called him Your Grace, and he would only shake his head. "No," he would say. "Not anymore." He died years later, quietly. An infection, they said. No banners flew, no bells rang, but in the ashes of his grave someone had carved a single line. He tried to be good in a world that punished good men.